So how about this? We'll just go over the Super Circuit tracks today, and maybe I can have the extra track ranking be my 8,000 subscriber special. Close enough. You guys seem to have really enjoyed my Super Circuit review. It was one of my more experimental reviews, so I'm glad it seemed to have stuck the landing. But if you've seen it, you know that I still have some unfinished business with the game. I did rank all 20 of the base game's courses, but I glossed over the 20 extra tracks. For those just tuning in, after solving Super Circuit's Riddles 3, you unlock the extra tracks, which are ports of every track from Super Mario Kart. Now, it does sound kind of awesome to have basically 2 Mario Kart games for the price of 1, but you'll start to become more skeptical once you remember the size of the game. So how do you manage to double the course count while retaining the quality of those legacy racetracks? Well, that's easy. You don't. Yeah, they had to cut down on so many things, removing pretty much any sign of life. They had to recycle backgrounds and tile sets from the base game courses. It's a very conflicting end product because on one hand I admire the effort, but on the other, there were so many sacrifices and modifications, it ends up feeling like a pretty poor tribute. Like, imagine if when McDonald's brings back the McRib again, and the toppings were replaced with sauerkraut. But to give credit where it's due, there's actually a couple of these that are pretty faithful to the original. A few of them I actually prefer over the original. As much as I like to say all of the extra tracks are dookie, in reality it's not that black and white. So of course, the best way to pinpoint my thoughts on these tracks individually is with my good friend the tier list. Even though I said that some of these aren't bad, the key word is some. We still got a big old mess to sort through until we can get to the good ones. So if you're curious to see my thoughts on some of the biggest atrocities in Mario Kart, then you've come to the right place. I don't think I'm even ready to talk about these bottom tracks, but we're going in regardless. Guys, these are awful.
Oh, I think I'm about to pass a kidney stone.
So, do you remember when I said that Vanilla Lake 1 from Super Mario Kart was the worst track of all time? Well, I'm afraid I'll be changing my answer once again. I just couldn't imagine creating a worse concoction than this, but these extra tracks are a whole different breed of shittiness, and I'm giving the new title for the worst of the worst to Super Circuit's version of SNES Rainbow Road. Oh my fucking god, this is awful. I already knew how abysmal this version was going into it, but dear lord, it's worse than what the legends say. They gave one of the greats of Super Mario Kart a lobotomy, leaving behind a hollow husk of its former glory. But how about we start with its smallest offense, the looks. It looks bad. The starry sky is pretty with the crescent moon and the clouds. My issues lie with the actual Rainbow Road. Yuckers. They made it transparent, so when the background is this dark blue, it ends up making the colors look gloomy, and the Game Boy Advance saturation sure doesn't do it any favors. A rainbow so ass it's homophobic. But enough of sounding like a Pokemon fan, let's actually talk about how it plays. This track gives me phantom pain. I want to get one thing straight first and foremost. There's no problem with how hard the course is. I mean, it's the secret unlockable final course in the game. Anytime I fall off from a bad turn or something like that is entirely on me. But when CPUs are in the equation, it becomes actual torture. Due to the road being this thin, which would be fine under normal circumstances, but because of the CPUs being so physical, bonking into someone is way more devastating than it has any right being. One tap from a heavyweight and you're cooked. God forbid playing as Toad. I guess the solution is to just play as a heavy character, but what if I don't want to? Simply going around them is not as easy as it sounds. Your best bet is to just hope you get some red shells in your one item box per lap. Also, they're literally the only form of obstacle this whole race has because the cool rainbow thwomps are gone. That's kinda the most iconic part of SNES Rainbow Road, but who needs that when you can have head trauma? But even if we take them out of the equation, even when you're actually ahead of those computers and you have the road all to yourself, what are you left with? Racing on a washed up shell of something that used to be good, while you stare at that eye-straining rainbow dash across the screen, and listening to that just delightful remix of the iconic SNES Rainbow Road music. When Mario Kart drops the ball on the music, there is something horribly wrong here. This course is miserable no matter what position you're in, whether you're lagging behind in the middle of the crowd, or you're ahead all by your lonesome. It's an insult not only to the hands, but to the eyes and the ears. Any other contender I can think of for the all-time worst does not even reach this low. Bowser Castle 2? At least a dead end is so stupid I can laugh it off. Vanilla Lake 1? I don't know, I can find a centimeter of comfort in it being a snow-themed course. Wario Stadium? At least the Wario Mario heads give it some personality, and there's some fun to be had with exploits. The Shell Cup version of Peach Stadium? That shit's a paperclip and a sorry excuse for a variant course, but at the very least, you can say the music is good, and that, you know, you actually have space to move around in. You're not constantly getting bumped by everyone. I hate thinking about this, I hate looking at it, I hate listening to it, and I especially hate playing it. This is fucking rancid. Well, that might be the worst of it, but there's still 4 more F tiers, so if you thought we were out of the abyss, you could not be further from the truth. Oh hey, it's the former worst of all time, Vanilla Lake 1. It's still a vomit of ice and snow that barely classifies as a racetrack. The ice blocks are still the dumbest shit ever, they just kill your speed and then disappear forever. Ice physics in an already slippery Mario Kart is just a delight, man. And naturally, Intelligent Systems looked at Vanilla Lake 1 and was thinking, how can we make this worse? How about we make the ice surface bob the camera up and down vigorously? You know, to really immerse the player to have them feel that bumpy terrain. You know, ice, the smoothest shit ever. Wow, this is this is borderline torture. Your migraines aren't just gonna be limited to hitting the ice blocks anymore. You'll be feeling it the whole race. Isn't that a joy? I can't fathom how this piece of shit made it through the drafts, but it's better than Rainbow Road by like the tiniest, slightest margin. I actually think the Snowland backdrop looks pretty appealing, more than the original Vanilla Lake background, but a nice background is too little to save this. Yeah, it's dog water. What's next? Fucking hell. SNES Bowser Castle 2, we meet again. You know what's comedy gold? The fact that there's no feather means it's impossible to make the jump over the dead end by any means. All 5 fans of this track are crying right now. I will say the high difficulty is more fitting in this context, since it is a course that you unlock later in the game. I still don't like its methods though. The map is made out of a bunch of L's for a reason. The thwomps, like every SNES course in this game that used to have them, are removed. And that was an element in this course that I actually kind of liked. And this goes for every SNES Bowser Castle. The music is dookie. Like, it wasn't good in the original, but here it has the same problems as Rainbow Road, being straight up unlistenable. Next up, Bowser Castle 1. I'm starting to regret doing this. I'm so tired, Finn. I don't have much to say that I haven't said in my Super Mario Kart ranking. It's probably the most boring track I've ever played. Like 80% of the race you're just going straight. And I know that sounds hypocritical being a Mario Kart World fan, but I don't know, at least I can do this. Maybe you do a turn, maybe you do some little jumps, and maybe you could get caught in those pockets on the edges. But with the absence of those dash panels that maybe could have let that happen, I feel like you need to actively try to get trapped. And with the thwomps on strike, there's really no threat. It's so boring. This course really needs some Mr. Beast type editing to keep me engaged. 16, Choco Island 2. The way the Choco Islands are represented here feel off. I guess Sunset Wilds was the most adjacent theme they had, but their whole identity was their inspiration behind one of the areas in Mario World, not just some random fuck off desert. And if Choco Island's identity stripped, I'm left with even less things to care about than before, especially since the piranha plants are gone. It removes that bit of tension I liked about staying on the road. That one squiggly turn is still kind of fun, but other than that, yeah, I kind of defend the Choco Islands every now and then, but there's nothing for me to defend here. It's garbage. But hey, at least we're moving on from garbage to trash.
If anyone can give Kirby the heave-ho, it's you, sire!
Donut Plains 3, like in Super Mario Kart, just barely claws out of F tier. The Donut Plains also feel weird in this game. I don't think the Riverside backdrop fits all too well. It feels like we're in a jungle, not a grassland. The Mario Circuit background feels much more appropriate, or they could have easily made a custom background like they did with Rainbow Road. As a result, all the Donut Plains feel slightly weaker by being what they aren't supposed to be, and the gameplay department is a downgrade too, especially with 3. One of the few parts I actually liked about Donut Plains 3 is manually hopping across the bridge, but now it's automatic thanks to this jump panel. If the reason why they did this is that you wouldn't make it across with Super Circuit's physics, then why didn't they just shorten the gap so I can make it across? I still have the same problem with the road getting too narrow and wavy, but I don't find it as frustrating thanks to Super Circuit having more comfortable controls. And I think the removal of the moles isn't that harmful. Their role in the original felt unnecessary. Some things are better, some things are worse. So I'm gonna give it the same grade as I did in its original game. Number 14, Mario Circuit 1. For what is your first step into your journey of disappointment and confusion with the extra tracks, Mario Circuit 1 Could have been worse. I think it serves as a decent warm-up, and I like that one stray item box you can nab by going off-road. I like this version of Mario Circuit 1 a bit more because of that, but at the end of the day, it's still Mario Circuit 1. It does serve well as a starting track, but like, I busted my ass unlocking this, I don't need a starting track. 13, Choco Island 1. Not much I have to say for this one. Just like Choco Island 2, the aesthetic feels dissonant from the concept, and the lack of piranha plants make it feel even more barren. But at least your cart still goes boing, I like that. And the smaller mud piles are decently effective at messing up your traction. Just another mediocre and forgettable extra track. This is the last of the bunch that I would confidently call bad, but there's a good chunk of these I wouldn't exactly call good either.
Minor in charge.
And to start off the C tier, we have... Oh great, it's you. Why do you keep showing up in my life? Well, this is gonna be far from the last time I'll be talking about Mario Circuit 3, so I guess it's fine I have barely anything to say about its appearance in Super Circuit. I guess it is slightly better than the Super Mario Kart version. It's basically the same layout, it just lends itself better to Super Circuit's controls. I guess it's one of the better versions, but I don't care, I'm so sick of this guy. I had a comment inform me that Mario Circuit 3 was apparently the first course they made for Super Mario Kart, so I guess it keeps reappearing because of its sentimental value. Can they be sentimental about something less mid? Number 11, Mario Circuit 4. I thought this course was slightly more unique than Mario Circuit 3 because of those pipes you had to squeeze in between, but those pipes are missing here, and it's the most baffling instance of missing assets in these extra tracks. I know these courses are fighting for their lives against the game's memory size, but I don't know, I find it hard to believe that placing a couple of objects where all they do is be solid would have pushed the limits of the game. It's dumb, but the layout remains intact, and I still find it to be slightly more satisfying than Mario Circuit 3, hence why this is once again right above that course. Number 10, Donut Plains 1. First of all, I do want to let you guys know that I am recording this entry during my lunch break at the Glass Factory, so I apologize in advance for the background noise. I once again have the same gripes with the theming, but other than that, everything's the same as before. It's still basic, but completely harmless. I'm glad it still has the rocky terrain on the inside. All of the extra tracks have an extra item box outside of the one set per lap, and I think that's a great way to add some additional challenge to these comparatively basic courses. But a nitpick I have with Donut Plains 1 is that its stray item box is just out in the open, it's really easy to grab. That's really all the complaints I can reach for. Once again, it's harmless. Looking back, I feel like I was too harsh on Koopa Beach 2 in my Super Mario Kart ranking. It wasn't that bad, just kinda boring. For what it's worth, I think this version is a bit better. The GBA saturated colors actually makes it easier to tell apart the shallow water from the deep. It makes that section a lot less frustrating, as well as removing the cheap cheeps, which I thought were unnecessary before. Its short length and low difficulty still doesn't belong in the special cup, especially the extra special cup, but you'll have a decent time if you're in the mood for something chill. Number 9, Ghost Valley 1. They actually did what I wanted them to do with Donut Plains 3's bridge jump, which is making it possible for you to make it across with a regular hop. At first I assumed you had to use mushroom speed to get across. Don't do that. I like the reuse of Boo Lake's dynamic skybox, but I kinda miss the funny Boo sprites in the original. Everything else is about how they were before. Number 7, Bowser Castle 3. Man, this one stings. This is one of the greater victims of the extra track goof-ups. So my problem with those thwomps potentially barricading the road should be fixed now that they're gone, but in the process they also got rid of the thwomps that weren't an issue, so you're just left with an empty castle. In Super Mario Kart, each item box was a one-time use, so with this section with all these different islands, you had to take a different path each lap to get a different box. But with the boxes regenerating in Super Circuit, I'm just gonna take the same path every time. Even then, I still appreciate the complex layout, like this section with the different lanes. It's still enjoyable, but used to be way better.
Oh shit, it's Freaky Bob!
Number 6, Ghost Valley 2. I do want to give a heads up, I am recording this in an evil, scary witch's hut, so I apologize in advance for any background noise. The only changes made to Ghost Valley 2 are pretty neutral. Without the feather, you can still make that one gap with a well-timed mushroom boost and bunny hop. And there used to be this part at the end where you had to dash panel into a ramp with an item box behind it. Only the item box survived the cut, but considering how they regenerate in this game, I'd still consider this a good risk and reward with it being this close to the edge. And it's still a good transition into the more difficult courses of Super Mario Kart.
Number 5, Koopa Beach 1. I felt like I rated Koopa Beach 1 a bit too high in Super Mario Kart, but I still like it a lot. Skipping across the water is such a treat, and there is so much free range with how far you can get into the water. And nothing has really changed here in Super Circuit. The regenerating item box on that lone island works better in this case as it allows you to snag it on multiple laps. It is short-lived, but a good time nonetheless.
Number 4, Vanilla Lake 2. For the most part, this is the exact same funhouse for bunny hopping as before, despite the abuse of those stupid ass ice blocks. I say for the most part because, well, there's this again. And this might be the worst case of it because Snowland and Vanilla Lake 1 were shit to begin with, while here it's bogging down what would have been a pure joyride. It's funny that jumping over the cracks is so fun it can carry not one but two shit parts of the course. I just love doing it that much, but I'd be lying if the other stuff didn't hinder my enjoyment a bit. Number 3, Mario Circuit 2. I thought this was the best course in Super Mario Kart, so it is a bummer for it to get a few nerfs. So what I thought was the biggest highlight was that big jump at the end, but specifically this last turn that the jump leads into. They had some pipes blocking the left side, so cutting this last turn had some big risk to it. So when this version takes out the pipes, the jump is still fun, sure, but there's just far less tension and strategy now. And that's also thanks to them mopping up the oil slicks. Thankfully, I still have a good time as ever with those turns that lead up to the jump. So this version of Mario Circuit 2 is still a fun time, just not as much of a challenging time anymore. In second place, we have Donut Plains 2. Really, the only sense of a downgrade are the moles. They're one of my favorite obstacles from Super Mario Kart, from the way you had to shake them off, but honestly, I don't think they were what defined Donut Plains 2 as one of the best in Super Mario Kart, but rather the actual racetrack, with its variety and fun and tight turns like the zigzag and the U-turn, and all of that is still here, so it still stands strong as one of the best. It only went from A tier to B tier because of minor nerfs, and just that the Super Circuit tracks have a higher standard. We're almost out of here though, we just have one more extra track that... Hold up.
It's not shit! It's not shit!
I'll be so for real, I was not expecting any of the extra tracks to get an A. I was surprised to even see how many Bs there were, but to my genuine surprise, they actually took one of the best tracks from Super and made it better. And that course is Ghost Valley 3. I was not vibing with this when I first started. I didn't prefer the broken pure background, and I assumed that this was not going to be nearly as fun now that I can't use feathers to jump over the holes. But in a moment of panic, I found out that you can actually make it across the gaps with a simple hop. I then found out you could actually do this in the original too, and that's pretty cool. And it's thanks to the hopping being a lot more of an instinct in Super Circuit. And from there I was like, okay, I'm so in. The fact that you don't need a specific item and you can just do it as long as you have the balls makes those exciting and death-defying moments a lot more frequent. I don't think it's that much faster to hop over the holes as opposed to easily going around them, but it will tempt you if you want to be a show-off. Ghost Valley 3 is still an exhilarating late-game trial, and it got even better when I found out just how many more opportunities there are to go above and beyond. But yeah, it might not be a high bar to be the best extra track in Super Circuit, but to be an extra track that's better than the original, and actually be a course I would choose alongside some of the better base game courses, that's gotta be given mad props. And that wraps up my coverage on this rather interesting bunch. More often than not, I was met with disappointment, but I think it was worth talking about exactly how each of them were disappointing, instead of throwing a blanket statement that they all suck and calling it a day, because they don't all suck. It also begs the question if it was even worth adding all of these in the first place, if you had to make so many compromises and replacements. But as I've said before, I may not be keen on the tracks themselves, they're better fit as trophies. Just letting you know that you've put in a great effort to unlock these, and I appreciate that. And I guess to put a bow on all of my reviews so far, it's conversations like this that makes the older Mario Kart games so interesting to talk about. Playing Mario Kart in the modern day is the most fun you can possibly have, and it's because there's a science to all of this. It isn't easy to get right either, and these original titles really show how many steps or missteps it took to get here. It's been fun revisiting these 3 games throughout this year. It was interesting to see just how much my feelings have changed on them. Super Mario Kart was a bit better than what I gave it credit for. The same can be said about Super Circuit tenfold, and 64 is good if you're old. As critical as I've been on them, I can't deny how innovative they must have been at the time. And it was their innovation and legacy that would help Mario Kart become what it's known as today, which is the greatest racing game series ever made. Actually, you know what? Fuck this. My new best friend is Kirby Air Riders.